I'm Lise McLaughlin, and I founded and direct Nature Culture and the Writing the Land project. And the Montague Reporter published my first newspaper article, and I edited the science page for them for 5 years until publishing began to take up too much time. So I sincerely appreciate the kind editing of Mike Jackson and Nina Rossi, and Nature Culture's project Writing the Land supports the poetry page with a yearly donation. And this presentation is an additional gift from our poets to help keep the poetry page going. So I'm going to put a link where you can donate to the newspaper into the chat.
Well, thank you, Liz, for putting this together. And boy, the last readers that I caught when I came in here were amazing from Migrations. Unfortunately, I couldn't be here for the whole thing, but I want to thank you, Liz, for your support of the poetry page. I've been editing it off and on since its inception 20 years ago. And my feeling is that it just keeps getting better and better. So I'm delighted to be here. And Montague Reporter has existed on a shoestring from the very beginning. And any support you can give is greatly appreciated. Thank you. And I don't know, Liz, how you want to run do the readings. Should I start or?
Yes, why don't you start? Each reader will have about 5 minutes. If you want to go a little shorter, that's okay too.
Sure. Okay, I'll do that. Okay. All right. Say it is a geranium in a black pot or a warbler on the shoulder that make the difference in how we do what we do when we do it, as if the clouds never existed. I peel off the yellow cigar band, attempt deafness, though it does not come naturally to my right hand. These are the basic facts of everydayness. Nothing will ever be like something. Pumpkins will never fall from any tree, and the sun stays aloft, at least for now, and the moon is far, far away. Implications. This discovery unique during the initial stages, constantly substituting one for another, neither, both, ongoing, apart from fragmentary wholeness, none ordered, all understood, attributes confused, static, corrosive, assimilated elements appropriate the situation. The situation is appropriated by seeming involvement in which all means exhaust the available. Logic and its precedent become a part of the mind, constantly overlapping, not separate episodes, but each free and disturbing, less distinguishable if circulated outwardly, reversed, dispersed. All the time something, everything long enough, days unfolding relentlessly, the clouds synchronizing their predestined movements with drifting certainties. Long efforts are affixed, quite orderly to the quotidian. What is intent trying to do? Make sense of it or make it stop? Food for the birds is scarce this winter, and the river widens, rises, freezes over, thaws, refreezes, pushes against the stones and the flat rocks, which will remain unmoved when spring decides to come. Existence is present within the non-existent. Flickering shadows preside over the here and the gone. Tonight's red sky begins to fade, but the light hangs there in the west for a few more minutes as the winter earth begins quietly to move itself into the east. And I'll finish with a new poem from a book that'll be out at the end of the year. This is a pantoum called Swallowed. A conundrum over there, swallowed in the depths of the snows of yesteryear, buried and almost forgotten. Swallowed in the depths, whether intentionally or not, buried and almost forgotten, impinging on our beliefs. Whether intentionally or not, we ignore the more obvious reckonings impinging on our beliefs, resist nostalgia creeping in. We ignore the more obvious reckonings footprints so easily provide. No need to get swallowed in the mystery. Resist nostalgia creeping in. Footprints so easily provide a way for us to understand how we journeyed to this place. No need to get swallowed in the mystery. A way for us to understand is not as elusive as it seems, but we willfully ignore how we journeyed to this place is not as elusive as it seems, swallowed in the depths of the snows of yesteryear, buried and almost forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next poet is Roger Martin.
I'll read my first poem, actually, a nice joining is in the Migrations anthology as well. It's called The Night Seals of Lubeck. At witching hour, summer rain patters on the wharf. Fog drifts in and out to a tide just before change. The seals glide to the landing, ease themselves from the water. Respectful of whiskers, they nuzzle with their brothers, the sleeping dogs of Lubeck, remind them of kinship. Then, through the open windows of the town, the seals silently enter the bedrooms of sleepers. The dogs of Lubeck curl contentedly on the floor, while the seals whisper in the ears of dreamers who've mastered seas at midnight and charted oceans of the past. Then, silky as they had arrived, the seals leave the sleepers for dawn, gather again at the edge of harbor, nuzzle again with their brothers, and depart. When the children wake, they speak of graceful dives through sun-greened kelp. Their elders wake to puzzlement at a thin film of water on the tiles that lead to open windows. Pondicherry Winter for Stanley Kunitz. The frost is short-tempered, my dawn. Snow crunches beneath weary boots, and trees creak against the nip of breeze. Somewhere a report cracks the silence, a maple squeezed too hard by the cold. I trudge a quarter century behind from one of the tribes less taken with vortex, swaddled with comfort, drowsy in warmth, bounded by frozen windows, slow to grasp what lies beyond the glass also thrives and is more and less than the sum of these parts. This early hour from the pond under the thick ice, sonorous, mellifluous echoes undulate like a pod of polite whales waiting church breakfast. Above, vapor's curtains sweep across the glaze until they hang upon soft mounds of snow, muffling the shore of this rhymed garden, the realm of the ice spirit, who has passed through many names. He announces his own, and with majestic wave and wing, silences the wind and brings the unveiling of miracle. Great flocks of heat rise as if translucent white starlings. They carve and curve into and out of each other, a thrum of transparent migration toward that pale and distant sun. And my last is almost a sonnet. After the line of late-day squalls, a close blue breeze skits between crust lichen and moss-covered limbs. It echoes dappled sunlight, a foot on duft untouched for generations. Elsewhere, too, the sanctity of lost song tugs at the eaves of crowned oak and maple. And what of the feldspar, garnet, beryl, and smoky quartz? Crystals withdrawn on sites which beget lanes and highways to transport them to skylines, those grand monumental shots to nothingness. Let the mica remain. Let it glitter among the tourmaline, faceted testimonials to what we're not, predating all we've ever known. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger, for reading from so many of the anthologies you're in. Wonderful. Appreciate it. And our next reader is Earl Livings. Welcome.
Hi, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'll just read a couple of poems. This first poem is a type of love poem, I suppose you'd say. Just a couple of points. I'm from Melbourne in Australia, which is south of the continent, and it's quite cold here, except for summers where it is getting warm. My wife is from north of Australia, which is humid and tropical at times, and hence the motifs in this poem. The Fine Art of Home Irrigation, for Joe. Gardens are the green furore of climate where you come from, such dynamos of ferment, heat and rain, effusive as your Queensland plateau is high. 6 years of Melbourne inner city concrete turf have not exposed you to that fortitude of fluid rights every bordered, upturned, weeded quarter-acre landscape compels. Our new front yard has networks of rubber tubing, nozzle stalks, easy to turn the tap and watch jets of mist buffer soil and plant against the day's perihelion stare. The trick is not to forget the flow before morning finds a swill. Our backyard has nothing but an open-necked hose shortened by rental use. You turn the tap and soon must learn left hand and right, as muscles strain with water verve, how much stressed by thumb or finger upon the stream fans the escape velocity of relief, gentle for puddles around trees, firm spread for tomato and rose, how to flick kinks double-handed from uncoiling hose, how to whip long cords of splash across lawn to patches of derelict impatience. Like all beginners, you think singed leaves are cured by spray, splatter trunk and branches too for good measure, water the blessing of a priestess. Even when you learn the siphon of nutrient is root to leaf, your excuse still charms. It's like splashing my own face. You sprinkle every surface of desiccation, grin and turn when reminded to drill finger into dirt, litmus test for moisture, laugh when thumb spray backfires during frequent changeovers, frown when need for reach yanks hose from tap socket, venture reconnection without soaking, return again to your apprentice art, this slow, succulent rejuvenation of green. I often look after a friend's house in a regional city in central Victoria, and there's a national park nearby, and I walk there almost every day. And this is something that happened in one of those walks. Cuckoo shrike. Sudden stroke of shadow. The bird drops from branch to branch, inscribes itself as silence. Head, periscope swivels almost completely around, scanning for rivals, predators, its own prey. Ignores the human below, still as sunlight, gaze of a watchmaker, breath the barest comment. Swoop and flurry, it snatches a lime green grub from deep within a summer blockbuster of branches. Returns to its perch, grub twitching in its beak. Swivels again to spoil any swoop out of shadow. Cocks its head back to swallow and shiver. Preens its breast feathers, glides to another page. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. That was beautiful. Our next reader is Mary Brancaccia.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for letting me be part of this. I'm going to read from Streamlines, which is another nature culture publication. And this one was written about a land trust in Cayman Brac called the Coast to Bluff Regional Access and Conservation. It felt like we needed something a little bit warm. And it's like with this cold Arctic blast that's coming up through the East Coast. Songs of the Dead and Dying. Young eye, what do you see when you look through the lace of a dead fan coral? How is your sky? Purple cloud pregnant with rain, cobalt of deep current, green curl of shallow wave, stained glass in the church where my father was waked, colors broken, rewoven, light bleeding through. Every tear is a tiny womb that carries a child of grief. All that is, all that was, is transforming, evolving, adapting, becoming petal, becoming breath, becoming cup, becoming boat, becoming fire, becoming smoke. The lost speak in the vireo's voice, their light shining like silver fronds, blessed by morning sun. They dance in orchid scent, in plumeria. They send dreams. I am flying like a frigate bird above an ocean of endless waves. I am swimming in a cloud of parrotfish inside a cradling sea. The dying whisper through osprey's bone, in the femur of goat, in conk's cracked shell, in a coconut husk, in ding of stone on the iron shore. Fragile, fragile, fragile. You have forgotten how fragile you are. The dead ask, how will you walk through the world if you close your ears to our song? How can you live without our grace? The dead and dying say, you will never heal alone until you dismantle the wall around your heart. Your mourning will be an empty belly, always hungry, always devouring. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary, for reading that. Let's see. Our next reader is Margaret Sarko. Welcome.
Hi.
Margaret. Hi.
Thank you, Lise, and much luck to the newspaper. Love newspapers. Montague, independent newspaper. Please donate. Whatever. The first poem I'm going to read is from my collection, If There Is No Wind, and it's called A Story for Our Times, which was inspired by a quote from Hafiz, a 14th century Persian poet. I have 1,000 brilliant lies for the question, how are you? How are you? Asks a coworker I don't know well. Fine, I lie. How are you? My friend asks. Do you really want to know? I ask. No response. How are you? My partner asks. It's been a difficult day, I say, holding my head in hand. How are you? The barista at the coffee shop asks. You really want to know? What? He says over the din. I'll have a large tea, I say. How are you, Mom? My daughter asks. I'm not sure I can tell you, I say. Why? She asks. Because, I say, stalling. I can't lie to her. Mom, just tell me. Bad week, I say, crying. Mom, she says, tell me. So I do. The next poem is in an anthology called Greening the Earth. It was a Penguin International anthology. It was very interesting to be in there. It's called Waiting for News of Hurricane Dorian. I wake from unbalanced dreams to the sound of healing bowl timbre and logs neatly stacked by the hearth, highlighted by the morning sun. Cicadas chirp rhythmically, even at dawn. Breezes from the north rattle wind chimes, and faraway storms shake islands in the Atlantic. A lone can is kicked, rumbling down the street. A hungry child wakes, then cries. Reports arrive tempestuously over airwaves with bad news. The next poem I'm going to read is from my newest collection called Even the Dog Was Quiet, Human Error Publishing. Shout out to Paul Richmond. It's called After Parkland. 600 students plus 100 staff members walk parade-like to the church. Students weave around trees, dip into the street, and rejoin their homerooms. The mood is light on this crisp autumn morning. The staff periodically reminds children to stay on the sidewalk as we make our way to the safe house. One boy nervously asks, his anxiety exposed, what if someone finds out we are doing a drill and attacks us? There aren't a lot of police. True, I say, noticing a few patrol cars with flashing lights giving the exercise an air of legitimacy. But this is only a drill, and continue my part in herding children to safety. But as we walk together, I know his night terrors will increase, like many of his classmates, and cloud his days. He looks at me, waiting for more, asks again. Not today, I say. Not today, love, and pat his back, making contact even though we are instructed never to touch the children, even a light tap on the shoulder. Today, he needs my reassurance. I nervously glance at cars, people walking by, and the sun shining down upon us. Today, I need to be right. Today, I need to keep them safe. And my last poem, couldn't resist. I'm reading from Youth Writing the Land, which was such a wonderful book. This is a poem called One Mother Earth. I am humbled and know my place in the world when I enter the woods. Even if I can see a highway from the trail, it is distant and quieter than driving on it. But I am struck with how we have compressed nature to fit our metropolitan lifestyles, thankful for protected lands. I walk, don't talk as much as listen. Why is it we separate or discuss nature as something other than what we live in every day? Strange. Earth is natural. To be either in nature or not in nature is baffling. I wish we could see Earth as one entity, show our mother the respect she deserves. Thank you so much, Lise. And again, a shout out to Montague Reporter. Donate, donate, donate. Thanks.
Thank you, Margaret. That's really kind. And let's see, and we have, somebody told me that they donated, so thank you. I appreciate that. Our next reader is Susan Moeller.
Well, thank you, Liz, for the invitation. And I have to say, I feel like a bottle ready to be thrown against a vessel that's going out for a virgin voyage. It was just astounding to listen to this community of poets before and now. I'm just blown away. I will read from I'm an eco-poet and not so much contemplative in voice, but rather I like to rattle your bones. So I am reading from two poetry collections, Open Earth 1 and Open Earth 2. Settlements. When you cry, you flood the land. When you sneeze, you release a hurricane. When you belch, a volcano erupts. But never forget that when you kneel, you are only half your size, I said to the giant. When you bring me to my knees, I will wash away the ground beneath you. I will hurl you into space. I will swallow you whole, the giant replied. Acid rain. When I lived here, octopus beat with 3 hearts, dragonfly darted on 4 wings, starfish had 5 legs, cow digested with 7 stomachs, and my cat lived 9 lives. When I lived here, you and I had mostly 2 of everything: balls, tits, arms, eyes, ears, and legs. But now you and I are veterans with only 1 arm and 1 leg, cyclops with only 1 eye. When I lived here, the rains came often and bees swarmed in great numbers. But now Phyllanthus reigns on cracked and barren soil in a world without water and honey. When I lived here, I felt part of the landscape, never sensed I was dying of thirst. Now the trees lie black and split. Their welcome without living sound casts a hostile, acid smile. What did I have next? Where is it? Ah. No, I just read that. Muses of the lower world. As much as I would like to be remembered by the Appalachian water nymphs in Rocky Fork Creek, by the sea fairies dwelling beneath the equator, by the sirens in the Aegean blue, by the selkies of the British Isles, by the mermaids in the Baltic Sea, by the daughters of the Rhine, and all the meadows, naiads, and water sprites. Water has no memory, but lures us into believing so. Dark depths of the Pacific faults, clear azure of the Caribbean, foaming gray expanses of the Atlantic, pounding cascades of waterfalls. Water has no memory, but swallows the past. By the order of Neptune or Poseidon, with monsoons, floods, and tidal waves, in murky waters of the brackish wetlands, the quiet glisten of the Dead Sea. Water has no memory, but flows through us. Once, in the guises of Undine or Atagartis, as mysteries of the unknown and inspiration to the artist, but now demystified in algae blooming lakes, stinking drainage ditches, dammed rivers, and suffocating oil carpets. Thank God, water has no memory. And I'm going to close with a real short one. On the land, of course. Called appropriately the land. Existing outside of any comparison, its effects unequaled, its reality stranger than our imagination, there lies the land. Once it is done giving, getting nothing in return, nothing will remain, just dust. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. Our next reader is Gary Green.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I think of this as a one breath poem, even though I can't do it with one breath. It's called Mobius Trip. I stand at my printer as it spits out poems like it has a bad taste in its mouth, cleansing its palate with the paper and ink it takes to print a poem about how to think, about thinking about standing at a printer writing a poem that's getting the best of me, about standing at a printer as in some pointless Escher sketch of me, standing at a printer thinking about writing a poem about watching verse issue forth, as consciousness ricochets deep south to far north between what's real and what's not, what I had and what I've lost, what you paid and what it cost, until what's real and what isn't is just as persistent as the ink on the paper, bloodless communion wafers still gushing from my printer as I rush back to my laptop, doggerel dithering lapdog, to capture these thoughts before they're lost in the fog of thinking about standing at my printer, thinking about writing poems as it prints this frantic, phrenic lint, adding to the cost of living a life in paper and ink, thinking and giving a damn sight more for writing than living until I can't remember what I was thinking before I was standing at my printer, watching it spit out these poems with a bad taste in my mouth. This is Photons. The light illuminating your lover's face was born at a time when humans, people we would recognize today, were just emerging on Earth. Spawned in the core of the sun, the very definition of hell, photons require 100,000 years to careen some 433,000 miles to the surface, where they escape at the speed of light, earthbound, to arrive a mere 8 minutes later, perhaps to illuminate a pane of stained glass for blurred, penitent eyes, possibly cause a child to squint as they study the clouds for dinosaur shapes, or just plunge heedlessly into the ocean, diving as much as 1,000 meters, below which even light cannot hold its breath. This is the grief. Grief spelled G-R-E-E-F. Shh, be quiet. You'll wake the goddamn grief. No, yeah, I know I shouldn't have to live like this, but just be careful, would you? When did I get it? Well, my wife got sick and it just started showing up, and it was better than nothing. Those scary nights alone, not knowing, and then she died. And it got bigger, like a lot bigger, you know? But it felt like just then, just for a little while, we needed each other. And I thought eventually it would get sick of me and leave. So I let it inside, let it stay. And now I know that was my first mistake. Then it just, I don't know, settled in, took charge somehow. And now I don't know how to get rid of the damn thing. There are days I don't see it around as much. I don't know where it goes to hide, but I can feel it. It's always there waiting for just the wrong moment to grab me. Then other days I wake up fresh into the nightmare and there it is lying on my chest, staring me right in the face. And it just hangs on all day. Then settles down in bed draped over my head. Nothing I've tried seems to discourage it. And as much as I want to be rid of it, sometimes the only thing that feels like it could be worse than living this way is not living this way. Logic of the non sequitur. Revenge is a dish like albatross, best offered and served with tea. Hates the emotion like applesauce, sweeter than it has right to be. Sadness is like a marriage, a way of never saying goodbye. Tears anoint your face with courage, but argue it's time to cry. Anxiety, a frosted blight, serves none but those it frees. Fear creeps in on godless nights when dreams provide no ease. Living makes no sense to the dead who have no tears to dry. Dying, like a dog seeking its bed, circles before it lies. Ashes to ashes. Understand you are not dead, but always dying. Perhaps a breath or two, heartbeat or 10 distant from denouement. Final scene, nothing as you'd imagined it. Peaceful, farewells in place, job well done, life well lived, affairs tidy and neat, precious one stroking hand or hair. Instead, disarray and unrequited email, unbalanced laundry in the washer, bed unmade, bills unpaid, taxes due, cell phone buzzing, pan on the stove soon to boil dry, subsequent fire of fitting inferno, legacy consumed, alone on the cold, hard bathroom floor, intestate, soul agape, temperature rising, dog scratching at the door, smoke in your eyes.
Thank you, Gary. Those were very heartfelt poems.
One more.
You don't have time, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, but if we do have extra time at the end, we'll circle back.
Okay.
Okay. Our next reader is Janet McFadden.
Thank you, Gary, for reminding me of the importance of humor. So I decided to go against the contemplative stuff a bit, anyway. I love the Montague Reporter. We read it every week. This is called Wind Rising, Housebound. I have my spatula and my spoon. I soak black mushrooms in their own blood. I slice the fermented tofu, stir-frying secretly in the night. Roads are closed, the visibility zero. The oil heats up. It has reached the threshold, and in goes the ginger, the hoisin sauce, breasts of squab, gnarled carrot, the soy. I am stirring and stirring the tree ears. The snow comes tumbling faster. I cannot see my neighbor's light. I cannot hear the animals snuffling or see their lantern eyes watching out of the woods. But somehow the message gets out. Chinese food on Jackson Hill Road, and suddenly everyone is hungry. Slipping out of fleeces and long winter underwear, they take their spouses to bed. They shake and they holler while the storm swirls, and I am furiously stirring the shining strips of naked bean curd. Oh, here's another sort of food poem. A dog food poem, or a food poem about a dog. Your mission is to call the beef to the edge of the table, to sing the butter to sleep, to unbalance my plate without my seeing it, to seduce me with your hot tongue, to mimic a sick child, hiding all the while behind your cunning. The nose does not lie. It hears the meat sing. The meat crawls off my plate and kisses your tongue. You lap the air, tasting it. You belong to the meat. The meat told you to be here. It asked you to open your mouth. It never loved me. I'll never know how you married it secretly on the kitchen floor, how its flesh and yours became one, how you swore love and fidelity forever and ever, how many ages its red hook had tugged at your brain, had cried in your dreams to be home. I'm reading some older poems from my Slate Roof Press in the Province Lands chapbook. So here's the last one from this book. I have had massive insomnia, so this one came out of that. Complaint. Oh, I am beside myself with want. 2 platters of salmon and a case of gin will not do me. I've been stuffing the grate all day, shoveling in the sweets and fats. Friend, if you've been waiting, forgive me. I can't stop now. The train is left, and in the first car is a bandit with a stash of ham in his luggage. I see right through that New York Times he's reading. How can I eat when the world is grieving, when my boyfriend is dying, when there's no more food in the house? I get really kind of stupid in this poem, really. I'm sorry. How can I rest with pigs roaming free in the aisles, their ecstatic squealing waking all the neighbors? My heart will not keep still. It goes walking at the strangest hours, as if a hand suddenly relaxed and opened. I really am tired. Everyone else is in bed. The TV repairman told me of a house where the bed was entirely covered with live shrimp. Think of it. Does Grace exist? It's not in the grocery store. I haven't seen any for ages. Can I sleep now, my tongue lingering on the sweetness of grass? How much happiness is there for the picking? Whole fields of green energy. Let's bash the melon open with a rolling pin and eat. Then have a little more. That's it.
Thanks, Janet. Our last reader is Suzanne Rancourt.
Hey. In between. A photo album of life and times. Stuttering, stopping, false starts, rough endings. And yet here in this space of humanness, in black and white archaic pixels, before pixels grayscale, we are too familiar, too close to life's tragedies and injustice, covered by venomous joy. What kind of animal are we that does not recognize we are all related? So, some of you might know what a sundown town is, and some of you may not. If you do not know, please Google it. They are alive and well, even as we speak. Sundowner. We are a current easing from one cave to another. Underground tunnels, wide mouth grin in limestone, small fish bones and shells. Balmy summer nights, swimming holes, honey, teenagers and risks, seasonings, memories flicker. A leaning sycamore, moss on the north side, swinging ropes, turbulence. Say their names. In honor of finally temperatures that feel like winter, glitter of wings. Ice birds strobe in tree crowns. Winter's beauty signals wind, sunrise, north mingles with west, freeze frames the glint, chickadees and lone cardinals light upon crisp canopies, rest, wait for spring water. In the backyard, the dream is pristine and stark inspiration, frozen nostrils, brittle as angel hair icing. There is no need to go further. And the last one, for warmer times. And since this all got started with migrations and connections, roots. A tone of wind flicks a strand of hair. Meandering trails across borders, shore to shore. How do we become flat stones in the middle of the upper Hudson? Blue ledge calls from memory. The white pine guardian still stands in its hundreds of rings of life, sightings, counting the passer-bys. It recognizes my voice, my footsteps, and the absence of those no longer walking with me. And this white pine has suffered losses too. its roots dead, ending in the fallen and decomposed. White pine, my old friend. We are not too old to lay down on rocks and open water among dragonflies and eddies. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne, for reading in both readings. And now I'd like to turn it back over to Chris Sawyer.
Okay.
Thank you.
What an extraordinary event today. I feel blessed to have encountered such amazing poetry. It's a wonderful opportunity to encounter new work, new voices. And please, if any of you would like to be published in the Montague Reporter, I'd love to get some poems from you. You can write directly to the poetry page of the Montague Reporter and it'll get to me. Again, if you've got a few spare nickels, we can always use them. Liz, thank you so much for putting this together. Thank you all for reading and for coming. And it was truly a pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks for the work you're doing on the paper. And why don't you put the email that people can reach you at in the chat? And I just want to thank all the poets, especially those of you who were able to do both of the events today. It was really wonderful to hear all the different voices speaking mostly about the land, which was just lovely. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
All right, do you want to be back on, or let's see, replay spotlight. Here we go.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. I guess we'll close out now.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Great job.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank
Wonderful,
you all.
wonderful
It was great meeting
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Good to meet you. Bye.
Bye.